Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to what I'm calling the mayoral candidate edition of Rimshots with Sean, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. I'm here with Mr. Andy Fillmore. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Sean. How are you?
Great.
And nice to say hello to your viewers and fans.
Well, I want to thank you for doing this. And we were in the lovely, and I said to Andy before we started, I've never been in this building. This is the library, award-winning library. So great call.
Fantastic.
So I'm going to start right off the hop. You want to be mayor, why?
Listen, we have a serious housing crisis in Halifax right now across the municipality. We've got people living in tents and parks from Sackville to downtown Halifax. We've got young people who can't afford to buy their first home. And yet, this city is the place where people want to be. We have this incredible success right now. It hasn't always been this way. A lot of people have worked really hard to position Halifax for this kind of success. But this growth has come with challenges,
right,
and we need to address those. Housing is the biggest one. Affordability is part of that. Transit and transportation, how we're getting around. We're in a situation where ferries are having to be canceled because we can't hire people to fill the shifts. The transit staff are working so hard to try to keep up with all that demand. Buses are being canceled and late. Congestion is bad. So there are a lot of things to do with growth that we need to and can do much better.
So I've been seeing all the posts. You've been out doing your thing there, and you were at Musquodoboit Harbor the other day. You're in Eastern Passage. You're all over the place. Is pretty much everybody saying the same thing when you're talking to them, or is there variances of the same message?
The high level message for sure is housing and affordability. That is across the board. Now, when you get down to the second, third, and fourth issues, they tend to be more granular depending on where you're going. Up in Eastern Passage, there's concern about the condition of the wharf. You're not going to have that concern in downtown Halifax. You're going to be concerned with the encampments, for example. So, but the high level, the top line issue, housing.
So there was I think it came out today from the province, and one of the things about HRM and stuff. I mean, I keep saying this. I was one of those guys that used to watch Cable 10, Tuesday night.
Sure, yeah.
And you watch the issues and what have you. And so it came out today with some new regulations the province is going to be basically putting in place. Yet they probably expect HRM to enforce them. And there's always this push-pull between the different levels of government. So how do you foresee being able to negotiate that and kind of weed through it?
A couple things, and it's a great question. Thanks for it. I'm a city planner. I had about a 25-year practice of city planning before I got involved in politics. And that involved working for the city of Halifax and the planning department here, including part of the team getting this library built. Yeah. It included working at the provincial government at Waterfront Development Corporation, now called Build NS.
Okay.
And then I was a federal MP. So my career has been in exactly the kind of work that we need to be engaged in right here in Halifax, right? Collaborative work with every order of government, with the private sector, with not-for-profits to build the homes and deliver the services that people need.
Seems to be, I don't want to say a fireball going on right now, but it just seems like every day there's a different touch point that's obviously always around housing and what have you. And it's an emotional topic. If you get in, do you have a plan to kind of maybe bring the barometer down a little bit and kind of get everybody on the same page?
Absolutely. We're in a tough spot, and I'm gonna talk about the encampments in this answer, right? So what's happened is that the relationship between the municipality and the provincial government is broken down. There's finger pointing. We've got councillors, including a couple of candidates for mayor, who have been throwing firebombs at the provincial government, including the premier. That relationship is broken. It needs repair. Yeah. So because of that broken relationship, the municipality, the council, has been venturing off into provincial jurisdiction, namely the provision of housing for the homeless population in the encampments, providing tents and sleeping bags and all the things that those people really need to have. But it's the provincial responsibility. The province recognizes this, and in my conversations, sort of preliminary conversations with them as a prospective mayor, as a candidate, they're interested in having a really good conversation about where the boundaries are, where are the responsibilities lying, and how can we work together collaboratively. So that's how we're going to get through this. We're going to get those people the supports that they need and deserve, but in a way that's not using HRM tax dollars to provide housing, because that's not our mandate. Right. HRM taxpayers need to have their buses and their ferries running on time. They need those potholes filled. They need to have their garbage picked up. They need all those things that they're paying their taxes for.
I want to lob something at you, and if you don't want to answer, totally fine, because I don't think it's salacious in the least. You used to work for the city. Mm-hmm. A number of years ago, I worked for the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce, you said this thing they called the red tape man, where there was a lot of red tape at the city level. what I work in now is music and that type of thing. And a lot of people say it's really hard to get things like any big concert comes here. Why isn't Halifax getting stuff? I know why, because it's, geography is certainly one thing. I mean, and different sorts of things like that. Sometimes it comes back to the city isn't super easy to deal with. I'd love your opinion, only if you want to answer that.
Well, concerts are a very unique question in Halifax, right? There's been some difficult history, you might remember, right?
Absolutely.
And why do we get into that difficulty? We got into that. Here's my take on it.
Yep.
We got into that difficulty with the big concerts, Rolling Stones and Black Eyed Peas and others, because HRM, the leadership at the time, was trying to compete with cities like Moncton that were getting the Beach Boys at Parley Beach and all that kind of thing. We never needed to compete for bands like that, because Halifax, and you know this very well, Halifax is blessed with one of the most rich and talented grassroots indie music scenes in North America.
Yep.
We're Austin, Texas in Canada. So that's what we need to be focusing on. And there are good folks in Halifax who are trying to work and create energy around how we create a music city right here in Halifax. But you in your question was also how easy is HRM to work with? I know from the building industry, because I'm a planner and I spend a lot of time there, that there can be a tendency to lead with the answer no when people are trying to get something done at the city. And we're building a world-class 21st century city here. We need to be in the business of saying yes, that's a good idea. How can we help?
That's a great answer, because a big theme about my podcast is the fact that I'm one who had to actually go out and take on more international acts, because for whatever reason the locals kind of weren't playing ball. So we do have an amazing indie scene. We've got it, right here, and I don't think we support it enough or as much as we should. So that's a fantastic answer. As mayor, and I've said this when I've talked to other people. So you're one vote around the table, right? I mean, you're the guy that gets to go to all the dog and pony shows and represent the city. But when you're sitting around council, you're one vote around the table. There's a lot of personalities around that table. I think for the most part, everybody respects one another, but the horse can get out of the barn on different sorts of things. As mayor, who has to chair those, what would your strategy be, or what's your style going to be?
So if you think of it like the mayor is the CEO or the chair of a board of directors, let's say. So the council is really a board of directors, and every successful board of directors, if it's a corporation or a not-for-profit or whatever, has a strong chair. A chair that is carrying the vision of where that organization, in this case the city, wants to go. A chair that is able to enlist the excitement and passion and skills of the people around that table to execute on that vision. Mayor Mike Savage has done a great job in this regard. He's been at it for 12 years, and he's been an incredible ambassador and a steward of good times in Halifax. But the world is complicated now. Sure. We have these challenges that we've just talked about, and a different style of leadership is being called for. The successes that I've had in my planning career, for example, getting the HRM by Design downtown plan through a 3-year public engagement process and approved, was all about bringing people with diverse perspectives together in rooms to find the things that they can agree on in common and build a plan forward based on those things. And that's work that I've done in Parliament as well. So I'll be bringing that leadership style into the council chamber. And at the end of the day, I know that every sitting councillor and every candidate for council who will ultimately sit on that council after the election is hearing the exact same things in community that I am. Mm-hmm. Build more houses, remove the roadblocks, make life more affordable, get the buses and ferries running, fill the potholes, protect our neighborhoods, keep us safe. And that's what we need to do.
So as a former, I won't say former city planner, you're always a city planner.
You never lose it. You're always,
it's
always in you.
Everything that you see now, and you've been out of it for a while, has it gone, I guess, according to the way you would like to see it, or is it moving along at a pace, and has everything fallen into play like you felt like if you were still there would have happened?
I think we've succeeded beyond our wildest ambitions, to be honest. The fact that we're sitting in this world-class central library in a downtown that, so this library opened in 2016. In 2012, nothing was being built in the downtown. We hadn't seen a crane on the skyline in a lifetime. Literally a generation grew up without seeing a crane in downtown. We were able to turn that around, build a downtown core, a renaissance really that has happened here. And it's succeeded beyond what I ever thought would be possible. Like this, the world wants to be in Halifax in a way that we didn't anticipate. I thought like Canadian investors and Canadian families wanted to move here, but the world wants to be here. What's happened is COVID, immigration, global pandemic, global recession, rather, like interest rates, inflation.
Right.
This has changed the formula altogether. So the one thing that I wish I could go back and do differently was fight a little harder to get the powers from other orders of government to ensure that every time we built a building in the municipality, that some percentage of those units were deeply affordable. So that so affordable housing units would have been spread throughout the whole entire municipality every time a building got built for the last 10 years. That's something called, it's planner jargon, that's called inclusionary zoning.
Right.
And it is something that the province has now empowered the municipality to do and isn't doing it. So I've got my eyes on that.
That's interesting. Because I mean, yeah, hindsight, they say is 2020, and I mean it's kind of a cheesy line, but I mean I don't think anybody could have foresaw what happened in 2020. I mean, this podcast, I was playing 100 shows a year. All of a sudden, everything came to a grinding halt, and it was like, what do I do? I'm going to interview my musician buddies, and 4 years later, here I am.
There
but
you are.
Nobody could have foresaw that. Some of the challenges. I mean, obviously, housing is a big one, and you mentioned they hadn't been a crane in the air for years, and I can think when I worked at the chamber, the protective view, which in my opinion, protect the view of the Woodside Refiner, because I'm from Dartmouth.
Okay, yeah.
And Sunday shopping were the two hot buttons where they didn't want Sunday shopping. But now, it seems to me like they can't get buildings up fast enough. Is that a fair statement?
That is, yeah. We're behind. We've got a less than a 1% vacancy rate in apartment rentals. We need to be building 10, 15,000 units a year just to keep up with the growth in population and the backlog that we have built up. This is a solvable problem.
Right.
It's going to take some really intentional work around removing roadblocks and changing that attitude to a can-do attitude of the city to say yes to some really good ideas about how to increase the housing supply. We didn't expect this to happen with this great success. I remember the Valerie Plame was the director. Maybe
when
you
I
worked with
there.
her. Yeah,
I did.
And you had the the stoplights, the scorecard with red light, yellow light, green light. That was good. That was a powerful way to illustrate what's working and what isn't.
Yeah, and I just remember, at the time, it just I felt like we were never going to get ahead because I'd moved from Toronto. I was there for 7 years, and transit up there. I mean, people call it what it is, but I mean, it was just like, every 5 minutes there was a bus, and you had all these things, and I come back here and you got to wait for an hour if you miss the bus. And I will say that transit's come a long way from 10 years ago. It is a challenge though, right? Is that going to be one of the hot buttons that you're going to look at?
For sure. The transit system needs to catch up with our growth. So it's lagging and has been lagging behind. It's not anybody's fault. It's a growing municipality. Infrastructure is expensive. And we need to rethink the way we're delivering services across HRM, and transit is a big part of that. I think that our municipality is more than ready to have a light rail solution, and I'm going to be talking a lot about that. We can't be a city of over 500,000 in 2025 without a light rail system. It's not going to work without it.
Well, and what are we now? About 350?
No, we've crested 5.
Okay, so that's nuts, because when I moved back in 2000, it was a couple 100,000 maybe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, when you hear those numbers, you hear that growth, it's pretty easy to, layman's terms, figure out what's going on here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're really trying to, without sounding too brutal, you're trying to put 10 pounds of bologna in a 2-pound bag, right? That's, so in terms of ideas, day one, how long is it going to, take you to get up to speed, to get all these people together to say, hey, we need to get something going here?
This is the unique value proposition that I'm bringing to this election. I will not have to build those relationships or rebuild them in the case of some of my opponents in this race. I already am enjoying those relationships.
Right.
So I am in conversation already with the other orders of government about how we're going to solve this housing crisis, how we're going to continue to invest in adequate levels in infrastructure in the community. That's transit and pipe services to make sure we can grow. Though I've been very intentional in my political career to not be a partisan operator. I am a worker bee, a collaborator, and so I would be arriving in this job with partnerships in whoever forms federal government. I'm good with all parties up there, and I've got good relationships in the provincial government here. I'm good to go.
And I mean, one of the things that so far, we've got a couple more months, but there really hasn't been any mudslinging. I mean, you haven't seen any negative things in the press with the candidates and whatnot. And the thing I like about municipal politics really is its purest form, because you do get to represent your constituents. There's no, I guess, kind of party poll and different sorts of things.
Yeah.
Will that be refreshing for you?
Yeah, running under a party banner has benefits and also detractions. Like you're held to the party platform,
right.
But that platform also gives you a buttress, like it supports you as well. But I'm really enjoying the process of building my own platform, by listening to people across HRM and not having to sacrifice a principle here or there to meet like the broader party's objective, because there is no party, right?
Right.
The party, for me, if there is a party in this election, it's the people of HRM and their voice through me to deliver the services that they need.
So, in talking to people, do you get the sense that they feel they've been listened to, or is there kind of a feeling of maybe they voted some people in, but they really haven't got what they wanted in terms of progress and things happening?
What I know is what people tell me at the doorsteps and at the places where I go to meet them, and there is a sense that HRM could do a better job of listening to its constituents. Yeah. Sometimes, whether it's councillors or staff, might sort of explain why they're doing something in a way that they're not listening to the people they're explaining it to. You've got to listen as well as speak in these conversations. The most important thing that a municipal government can do is include the people whose lives are impacted by these decisions in making those decisions. Like, you have to include, it's to borrow from Indigenous wisdom, nothing about us without us.
Well, it's almost like we rehearsed this, because my next question was going to be, our municipality is about the size of Prince Edward Island, roughly.
Yeah.
So, and I said this when I interviewed another candidate, the councillor that is responsible for Ecum Secum will have to make decisions for people in Tantown and Hubbards and what have you. And sometimes there is a little bit of bickering that takes place. Are you prepared for that? Have you kind of mentally did that dance in your head of what it's going to take?
Listen, brother, I've just spent 9 years in the House of Commons. So.
Yeah, well, I've seen some of that too. So
I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
I think 1 week of question period, I think would prepare you. But to answer your question seriously, the success I've had in my work has been rooted in listening to diverse perspectives and harvesting the commonalities that people are carrying. Charting a path forward from the things that we can agree on. And we don't always agree on everything, and we don't have to agree on everything. But we find the things that we do agree on, and we find the things in others' objectives that we can support, even though we may not agree. It's like being in a family, right?
Yeah.
You may not agree with what I have a daughter. I may not agree with what my daughter wants to do, but it's her choice, and I want to support her for the greater outcome of what's good in her life.
How old's your daughter?
She's 17.
Okay, well, my daughter's 21, so it gets better. That's all I can tell you. It does get better. Yeah. So last question, and I mentioned this. I don't know if we get this on camera, but as best I can tell, the eligible voter turnout last election was 39%. And I keep saying that if you were in high school and you get 39%, you'd be going to summer school. That's not a passing grade, so that's not acceptable. Part of the reason why I was doing was to try to get my audience engaged to go, what would you say, not only my audience, but everybody? Because, this is a big one, really. This is only the 4th time we've elected a mayor. There's a lot at stake. What would you say to the people?
The sort of quick, snappy answer that you hear a lot is, if you don't vote, you don't get to complain. Right. So sort of a better and more inviting way to say that is, everybody who lives in this municipality has a responsibility to engage themselves in the governance of their community and have their voice heard. That's a fundamental concept in our democracy. In my federal work, I was involved for a number of years working on what we call the Democratic Institutions file, and that was all around removing roadblocks to voters getting to the ballot box, whether that was for women or new Canadians or disenfranchised population groups that were historically didn't vote. And I want to bring that same kind of focus to HRM to get that voter turnout. In the campaign, I think it's going to be really important the way that the candidates talk about this significant change moment that we're in, because when the community members realize what's at stake about getting our growth right,
Yeah.
then that should be a call to them to get into that ballot box and cast their vote.
It's a great point because, and often I say this in the music business, nobody really gets engaged till something lands on their doorstep, and then all of a sudden they're all in. And what we do with my humble little group is we take on a lot of different issues, and unfortunately we don't get to do some of our own. So I mean, really, that's what you guys are going to be doing. So, look, I want to thank you for doing this. I know that you're busy, and
we're all busy. It's a real pleasure.
But what a beautiful spot to do this, sir. Best of luck, and get out and vote, kids, because 39%, I keep saying this, is not acceptable. And if they're going to remove all the obstacles to get out there, then there's no excuse.
And you can vote online, so get out there and don't miss it.
Hey, everybody can do that. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.